Oftentimes agents, they're looking for brokerages to solve their problem, but they have to take ownership of their problem and solve it themselves, and then see which one of these brokerages will help them, where it'll be harmonious, like help them with their solving their problem, right? But they have to understand that they have to kind of take the reins and do the work. There's so much to do in real estate. We fool ourselves into thinking we had productive days just because we were doing things all day.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. Today, I have a Jacksonville native who is passionate about assisting buyers and sellers with one of the greatest investments in their lives. He believes his team's success has come from earning the trust of their clients by showing how tirelessly they work. He leverages his connections with local real estate support vendors to assist their clients, showing the value his team brings to the table. He has a master's in engineering. He has worked on major projects here in the greater Jacksonville area. Let's welcome one of the owner partners with Herron Real Estate, the Garrett of the Garrett Group, Garrett Masiulis.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. I got that all right.
The last name's tough. I know.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, Garrett. Sorry Erica couldn't make it, but as we talk pre-show, I really want to dig in on what you guys are doing over there at Herron, and also obviously what you and Erica are doing. Promote your business so people get to know you guys. And getting to know anyone, the easiest question is I kick off. You're from Jacksonville. Where'd you go to high school though?
Yeah, so I'm from Jacksonville. I went to Orange Park High School.
Okay.
I was actually born in Minnesota, but moved here when I was like 3-4 months old. And so, yeah, I've been here most of my life. I did have a little bit of time away with my dad in Maine and Indiana. But so I was here when I was young in elementary school, moved away for a couple of years, came back around middle school and have been here since. So I call myself a native, but maybe I'm a little bit of an imposter because I wasn't actually born here. Yeah.
Well, your kids, I'm sure, were born here. My kids were born. Actually, my wife was born here. She was actually one of the few for that age group because most of Florida is immigrants from all over the country, sure. Let alone the world.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Very, very few. We're meeting them more and more, obviously, as our area is in such high demand, which is great for us.
We need more Jags fans that were born here.
Yes,
everybody's an NFL fan that's here. Their first team is somewhere out of state.
Right. It's always important that the Jag season ticket holders, who's coming into town, right?
Yeah, sure.
Sell tickets. Sure. So you graduated from Orange Park High School. What you obviously was engineering your first passion? You went right into undergrad in engineering. You knew that's what you wanted to do.
Yeah. So I mean, as a kid, I was interested in science in general. The funny story is about engineering. When I went to Orange Park High School, my mom actually applied for me to join the engineering academy.
Oh.
And she just surprised me with, "Hey, I got you in." I had no clue that it was even a thing. But I was most interested, honestly, in astronomy and space. And then I got into this engineering program, thanks to my mom, and fell in love with applied science. Engineering was my thing. It was my go-to. It was what I was good at, passionate about. And really, it was my focus. I went to the University of Florida after Orange Park High School to get my degree, undergrad and graduate. And I hit the ground running. I'm when I had my eyes set on something, that was it. And that was my laser focus. Of course, I'm sitting here talking about something else. I diverged a little bit along the way, but that was definitely my passion.
We talked a little bit, though, pre-show. I mean, you and your wife are kind of, what do they call it, yin and yang, though, as far as from a personality, and we can dig into that and how you guys work with clients. She's more the empathetic one and thinking, you're more analytical, and we have this area between the Navy and Northrop Grumman and so forth. We have a large engineering group, plus with all the projects going on, brings in jobs and so forth. So we are working. There's no doubt in my 18 years of being in the mortgage business, in a good bit of that, 2/3 of that being in a call center dealing in volume. And it's kind of like that office joke of, you're trying to win the sale, right? And you're dealing with the engineer and they're like, send him a spreadsheet. That's the joke, right?
I try not to. I want to, but I try not to.
Can you give me the numbers on what I put? 5% down, 10% down, 15% down, 20%?
Maybe I should have been a mortgage loan originator or something.
Yeah. So it's always been that way, but it is a different mindset in what you're doing, and sometimes obviously it's like the DISC assessment. If you get it and understand how an engineer thinks, you can
Yeah, talking about that, really, my wife is the anchor to like our family and business. Honestly, she does drive she's that emotional support rock. And so when we meet with people, I try and very quickly understand like who are they going to jive with the most.
Right.
And I've got to admit that most of the time it's my wife. Yeah. But when it comes to solving the problems and dealing with the tough decisions and dealing with the high emotion, which there's a lot in real estate, I think that's where I can kind of navigate the emotion, even though like she's probably better at dealing with it. I kind of help them navigate through it and get to an endpoint, but definitely I couldn't do it without her.
Well, I think one thing we're dealing with now, not that it's totally new, but I think with the current market conditions and my wife being in real estate too, so I hear, I understand a lot of the deals right now have a lot of parts.
Yeah.
The loans do too. If you talk to the loan officers right now, there's a lot of extra puzzle pieces. But the putting the deals and negotiating and the contingency things that the different people want on each side, then sometimes that's where you come in and you kind of bring in the, what do you call it, rational sense, like, okay, here's your options. It's either A or B, man. You need, type of thing, and break it down.
Absolutely. So I look at myself as an educator. And so I tell everybody when we meet for the first time that you're going to get no shortage of information from me. It's my job and I'll go down every single rabbit hole. Like I'm not going to admit that or say that I know the answer to everything, but I will find it. And I do, and I put that work in, but I want them to know that this is their show. They're driving it. Right. Let me educate them. I was on a listing appointment yesterday, and I told them, consider me like the Siri on the iPhone or the Apple Maps.
Right.
I'm going to tell you how to get from point A to point B and what I think is the best direction to achieve your goals. But there's a million different paths there. And I just want you to know, if you choose a different path, what can you expect? And it takes a lot. I mean, I use data to try and help that, but data doesn't solve everything. We make emotional decisions, so I got to respect that and understand when the person I'm talking to is emotionally driven.
There's a lot of statistics and things out there that we choose to ignore.
Yeah.
The
crocodile brain that anybody's heard of if they've looked into the human psychology and decision making.
Right.
Yeah, the crocodile brain is the one that really drives the show. And so the data's there and it's important, but often we just throw that out the window.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So you've worked on some, I was looking at your LinkedIn, and you're with the engineering and couple different companies there. But what is it in 2020 that makes that leap into real estate out of engineering, where you got a master's degree, so you got a ton of schooling and a lot of studying in there, a lot of time involved in to make that jump over to real estate.
Yeah, don't tell my mom.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What was mom's response?
No, she's been super supportive too. I've been lucky. My wife and my mom along the journey have been my rocks for sure. But the transition was a little bit unorthodox, because I actually made the decision to start in real estate through investing back in 2014, probably around 2013, and I just had a conversation with my wife, and everybody at one point sits down and says, I want to be a millionaire, or 5 million, 10 million, whatever it is. They have some goal, and sometimes it's just a number that sounds good. And I think for me, that's probably what it was, but it at least led me down the journey of how do I get there. Engineering I work for a large corporate, engineering firm, national, 33,000 employees.
Oh, wow.
And, in the corporate structure, it's tough, right? To make it to the top can take a lifetime. And anyway, long story short, we bought our first foreclosure in 2014, and we fell in love with real estate investing, remodels, and things like that. And looking for an agent to help us, with pursuing investing and growing a portfolio, a mutual friend of David and myself, he basically said, hey, why don't you reach out to David? I actually worked with David in a marketing company when we were in high school. Nothing glamorous.
Oh, wow.
In fact, it was like a little bit of a marketing sweatshop. So more goofing off than anything. High school kids, you could imagine. But anyway, we connected, and he's the one that opened my eyes to helping buyers and sellers, right? The traditional kind of retail market and not the off-market investing side. We met up. I was kind of interviewing him, so to speak, just to catch up and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. And he shared with me his kind of vision of Herron Real Estate. And so in terms of getting into real estate as an agent and as an owner, that officially kicked off in 2020. But my passion and my wife's passion was investing. and we just went down the track, and we really love everything there is to love about real estate. Like, we love the wealth building potential, but we love helping people solve their problems too.
Right.
So buying and selling real estate, it's a big deal. And it's a hard thing to navigate. I mean, it's hard for agents sometimes to navigate. So could imagine somebody trying to operate without an agent. So we love being able to help them out.
Yep. Well, you said Erica was teaching.
Yeah,
at the time, and she decided. At what point does she join you? On there comes a point, because we definitely have a lot of ex-teachers that make that migration over. When does she decide to give up? Anybody in I think anyone who, I won't say likes teaching. I don't know but gets into that career generally wants that very secure environment.
Yeah.
The W-2, the benefits. They know when they're going to have their time off, that sort of thing. How does she break and come over?
So I'd love to tell you that this was like planned. It might be just a byproduct of me being her husband, because I'm constantly, looking for opportunity. And so for her, to just be completely honest, we got pregnant with our first son in 2017. And me being the analytical guy, I look at the cost of daycare, okay, and then I look at how much my wife was making. She's fantastic at her job. That is like, gosh, I wish teachers made more, because it takes a certain skill, and the way that she handles little kids is phenomenal. And mine, like, my kids are lucky. They don't know it yet, one day they'll know it, but it was just that quick, like math. Like, hey, what is, you're going to spend this time in school, and it's really just going to pay for childcare, more or less.
Right.
And so we decided as a family that she was going to stay home. In fact, we're really family oriented to begin with. So we want to be like, we understand the importance of school. Of course, I went through higher education. My wife was a teacher, but there's a lot that you miss out on school. And we wanted to help control like the information that our kids were getting. And so we made that decision for her to stay home. And I know you asked about how she got into real estate, and really how she got into real estate is we had a lot to do in real estate, and she's got some natural talents that align with real estate. She likes real estate. Gosh, if you see what she's done on some of our rental properties that she's remodeled, she's really got a vision, and her skill set's different than mine. Then it really didn't take much convincing. She's been there.
She knows what the color, what to paint the walls.
She knows everything. Like, when I walk with a husband,
I've got one of those too.
Yeah. And then when I walk and show a house with a husband and wife, and then that starts going into like the HGTV real estate, talking about interior design, I do my best. I'm like, what did my wife say? What she said? What can I regurgitate? But no, there's a need for her, and she's super talented at it. And it didn't take much convincing. She was there with me the whole time, and we're like, hey, how do we make this work together? And we figured that out. So.
Awesome.
It's been fun ever since.
So the roles, you now have the Garrett Group. When you guys get that call, maybe a referral you don't know, or just I don't know, someone sees your sign or something. But when you're not given that friend, when you're given the stranger that gets in front of you, how do you guys start with the initial call? Who makes that initial call? Or do you guys actually have some sort of, a plan set out based on your personalities and mindsets? Yeah.
So normally I do the discovery call, and I have consumed like real estate knowledge through podcasts, through primarily podcast, YouTube channels. That's what I do, audiobooks and things like that. So I would say from like a knowledge standpoint, understanding people's problems, it's kind of like my forte. It's what I like. And so normally on that discovery call, I'm having the initial conversation, but at the same time, I'm feeling the person out to understand, like, would this person be better serviced by me or my wife? Anybody, they get both of us, right? But it's that face to face. It's like, who's the person you're going to do
communicator,
business with? Right?
Yeah.
So like, there's somebody that's working primarily with my wife still gets my knowledge, my thoughts, my opinions, the data. It's just going to be communicated through my wife. And normally she's like the marketing designer mind. She's, dealing with social media, sending out, print marketing and things like that. But there are people that really need her. Like, in fact, like, even though I would give great service, in my opinion, the person's just not going to connect with me. And so although I'm generally the person that's like the point of contact, the second I know that they'd be better served by my wife, we kind of know it together. We don't even have to say it. Like sometimes my wife, she'll overhear a call, and she's like, yeah, that one's yours. Don't send them to me.
Just by the questions they're asking.
Yeah, and then it's vice versa, right? Plenty of times I'll get off the phone and I let the customer know that we're a team. They know, like, they're going to hear from both of us.
Right.
But yeah, and so generally it's the discovery call. I'm there, and we kind of just feel the person out.
I mean, imagine on a listing appointment, do you do more, or do you both show up?
Yeah, we do. We try to both show up,
Right.
But oftentimes, like, we know enough about the person we're meeting with before, and I am the data. Like, that's what I know and love, and I try to always bring a little flavor of that, just so they know that they're dealing with a professional, somebody who's paying attention to the market and isn't kind of, I don't like to go off my gut. A lot of times, that can get me in trouble, to be honest. That's why I rely on the data. So we'll go together, but if it is somebody who seems like they might receive the analytical piece a little bit better, I'll go solo.
Jumping kind of down to my questions, but since you brought up data and so forth, the article came out from Florida Realtors yesterday. I reposted it on my LinkedIn, and I thought it was just extremely interesting because talking about cash buyers. And for the longest time, actually, I was up at our corporate office, and the president of Town Bank Mortgage asked me what the percentage is cash, and I said, well, I think most of people say it's in the 30s. I say it's probably pushing 40, but 30 to 40%. And all of a sudden, this article comes out here just a few days later that nearly 55% of the transactions in Greater Jacksonville are cash right now. And how are you guys? Cash buyers aren't always a slam dunk.
No.
I've seen so many of these. They win deep. They generally move to the top of the list.
Yeah.
But then they're first to flake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the number was even higher during the pandemic in terms of cash buyers. But yeah, cash, it's interesting because to the seller, it's all money in the bank, right? And what we try to do with whatever buyer we're working with is manage the risk for the seller if we're on the seller side. And although the cash generally comes with less risk in terms of contingencies and things like that, you're right. They are the first to flake. And honestly, when they bring the cash, they feel like they're in a different field than the finance buyers. And so oftentimes they want something in return for the fact that they're bringing cash. And so like sometimes cash is great, but sometimes there's other home runs that are in my opinion better than cash. But it is interesting to see, not only the amount of transactions that are done in cash, but where that transaction is coming from. What are they transactions where they're current residents of Florida that are buying here, or what other states might they be coming from? Because Jacksonville's population is in growth mode and has continued to grow.
Right.
Time, so.
Well, I forwarded on to my boss. She's out in the Panhandle, and she said, out there, they're seeing a lot of 1031 exchanges because she's kind of on the beach where these people are buying the beach house so they can Airbnb it when they're not there, type of thing. And I said, well, I could see it'd be interesting. You might have these buyers that are in those northern states that are saying, Jacksonville's a hot market. Let's sell our investment property here, take that and buy another investment property there because it has a higher statistical data of a upswing of equity, right? And
those coastal markets like the one we're in, you're going to get the peaks and the valleys more so than in the middle of the nation, right in the middle of this. And so you're going to see that a lot. The 1031 exchange is a unique vehicle, and gosh, if you get me onto investing, this show could turn totally silent. But I do think you're right. And somebody who's got the wisdom to 1031 exchange to begin with, those are savvy buyers. And savvy buyers they're looking for deals. And if you just have the cash buyer, and let's say it doesn't even have to be a wealthy family. Just for example, let's say it is, and they're just buying a house for their kids. That may not be a savvy buyer. They're savvy if they're wealthy in some way, shape, or form, but when it comes to real estate, sometimes they just drop cash.
Right.
And you look at it as an agent, you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe, it just doesn't make sense. But that's it. You get both varieties in cash, but generally speaking, they are the first to flake, or I don't not necessarily like the word flake, but yes, what it implies is that they're the first ones to find the exit, right? And say, I'm just going to take my cash.
Don't show up with the earnest money.
Yeah.
I think I've had a couple transactions actually benefited. One was my wife's, one was mine. And I was telling my wife about my person who needed financing, and they got beat out by the cash buyer. And I was telling my wife, she immediately said, call them and tell them to be the backup offer, because these cash buyers have a high percentage of flaking out. And sure enough, 2 days later, guy calls me and says, the cash buyer didn't even show up. The earnest money was due at 5:00 and called and said, we're out. And they never, came up with. So being the backup, but let's dig a little bit, because I think this, in the investment side, because I think you'll tell a little about you and Erica and the Garrett group of what expertise, because I don't think enough agents are
own real estate.
Owning their own real estate. Yeah, they own their own house, but they're not. Because from the finance side, I've for years about getting investment financing,
Yeah.
That type of thing. And I know that, and they're asking questions because they've never dabbled in it or themselves and gotten involved. And so give us a little insight on when you have that buyer who is looking for investments, which I imagine, because I know you do, you probably have a little list to say, hey, if you find a hot property, let me know. I want to we'll check it out type of thing. But your years since roughly 2014 when you bought your first foreclosure there. And I mean, have you done numerous flips? Do you hold? What is your attitude?
So when we got started, and this has primarily been our role, when I was in engineering, it was busy, many 80-hour work weeks, like just crazy busy. In fact, when we had our first son, I don't think I saw him awake for the first 3 months. And that was like eye-opening. Saying that we put our family first and then saying I also did that, it's like I'm ashamed of it, honestly.
Right. Yeah.
But so what we did originally was we would buy the house, we would live in it because we could obtain attractive financing, right? As long as it was financeable. So that can give you a little bit of an idea of the level of distress that these homes were in. And back whenever we started in 2014, I mean, there were foreclosures that the asset wasn't really in distress. It was the person that was in distress, right? So they would take care of the asset, the house, but they would have some sort of financial hardship, right? Because we were climbing out of the recession and things like that. And theyese houses were being, they'd taken it back by the bank. And so we did like live-in flips. Okay, so we'd buy a distressed property. There was distress. At the beginning, it was cosmetic, but we've done full gut remodels as well. But we would buy it with attractive owner-occupied financing. And that was the reason we did that. One was because it was risky, right? And we wanted to make sure that we have to pay to live anyway. And so we were trying to hedge some risk there. But then the financing piece was the big thing, because when you look at cash flow in today's market, and really any market, the financing can be the decider, right? It is, in fact, because like whatever your obligation is from a debt service standpoint is going to be a big decision maker, right? And so that's what it was for us. We would do like these live-in flips. You buy the house, you fix it up. If you can live in it for 2 years, great, because then that shelters you for the capital gains side of things, unless you're making a ridiculous amount of money as a married couple. As long as we were under $500,000 in capital gains, we didn't get taxed on it. And so we did that several times. We have sold everything that we bought except for we own 2 doors down in San Marco right now. Since we opened up Herron Real Estate, we dabble in a lot of things, okay? And real estate's our core, but we have been focused on growing here. Herron Real Estate, we talk about ourselves, my wife and I. Herron Real Estate, the company, and our agents is our real passion, and it's been that way since 2020. So if I have a problem to solve for Herron Real Estate and a problem to solve for our agents or for our customers, we find a way to make both work, right? Because that's our passion lies for both. But we did in 2020, we really are focusing on kind of servicing agents more as a business owner, right? What can we do? I know we're going to get there as well. Yeah, but the investing side of things, it's been a lot of live and flips. We do buy and hold now. Every time we bought something, I told my wife we're not selling it. and then we sell it. And then the last 2 doors, we've meant it. So we've kept it. In fact, the house we currently are living in is another live and flip. We bought it in February 22. So we've just hit the 2-year mark, and we're looking for another opportunity. But that one will be a rental as well. And we're just going to continue to slowly grow the rental portfolio.
Right. What are you seeing as far as, obviously the interest rates are high. We're getting calls, as I'm sure you're dealing with buyers who are looking at, what their payment would be, if they were to buy, and especially if they've got little money down, are the balance between where we're seeing rents versus the mortgage. Obviously 2 years ago, hey, you need to buy. Now, are we seeing where the rents and the mortgage payments, maybe the mortgage payments are a little bit higher right now? Yeah.
So most people make decisions on money in each month and money out each month. And I tell everybody, just like, you probably do, like rates are going to always change. And I get the question all the time, is now the right time to buy? And I am a firm believer that it's always the right time to buy, right? But what you buy, like exactly what you buy, where you buy it, is going to be different for everybody, right? Because you got to think about your family as its own little business. You got to manage your own personal finances and be comfortable with what you're going to spend. But you got to understand that rates fluctuate and just be smart with that. To answer your question about is it cheaper to own or cheaper to rent, I'm going to always push towards the owning side. There's a lot of benefits to owning. You're going to get wildly different opinions, like a house is the worst investment. And it really is like, the leverage and the debt, it's important to understand the cost of money, but then understanding appreciation and real wealth is really generated in real estate. It isn't really the cash flow. It's going to be the appreciation standpoint. Not all places appreciate the same. And it's a very complex question to answer, but I still think that owning is the way to go. But renting is a great option. I just think renting should be considered a stepping stone to owning.
Right. Well, I'm saying when you're analyzing these properties, and if you're going to hold, or this house you're living in now, you find something next month and you decide go out, you're going to rent it. Are you able to get the rent to cover the note, or because obviously you bought this 2 years ago, right. Rates were lower then, that type of thing. Well, obviously that mortgage is on there, so that might make the rent for that property, because you have two rates from 2 years ago, versus someone buying an investment property today. They're going to have a little bit larger payment as those rents. As I've had numerous discussions, we were talking about Jordan Ferreira. She likes to buy and flip and rent as well. Yeah. That the balance, even because a lot of people want cash flow. That's me to think, I'm going to buy an investment property, I want cash flow. Well, right now you may not have cash flow because the rates are higher. Yeah. But you still have the high demand here. You're still going to get that rent, and you're still going to be building that equity growth as they pay the rent. And then obviously we know over time the appreciation is always won in real estate.
Yeah, the decision on like what's a win for you is a personal decision, right? And so I agree. The places that I buy in town, or that I would ever consider buying, are places that I would have no problem me personally living in. That's one of my criteria. Is my wife, myself, we have to have no problem living there, because we don't know what the future holds. Things could change, and we might have to live in a rental property. So that's one of our criteria. And in those places, you're not really going to cash flow. So that's why I'm saying you got to look at your family as a business, and what can you support. So I will buy a zero cash flow property. Like today, I would buy a zero cash flow property because I don't need the cash flow, right? Like we have different streams of income coming in from the different things that we do. And I understand that the way that you build wealth is generally through appreciation, but there's tax benefits to owning real estate as well, and the principal pay down by the tenant. So I'm not going to buy a property that needs my money on a monthly basis to maintain the asset. But I'm certainly not going to sit here and say I only buy a 15% cash on cash return rental. Right. But everybody's got to make that decision themselves. Like because real estate's the long-term play unless you're flipping, right? And if you're flipping, you got to understand the real cost of flipping, which a lot of people don't. But it's a long-term play if you're going to own a portfolio, and you're not going to get rich overnight. But it's that long-term wealth building that's so powerful. And so if you don't need the cash flow, then you can be a little bit riskier, I guess, in your decision making. But I'm not really risky, but it's just because outside of the portfolio, what we're working with in terms of what brings money into the family is okay. Like I understand it. So this experience and obviously the knowledge that you just spilled into us there, and your analyzation, you're breaking down the numbers and everything there. How has that helped you guys in your real estate business? And it's because the real estate agents that are listening right now who are not doing, and they may not take it to the level that you guys you're doing it on, but they need to dabble in buy real estate themselves and look at possible investment, or learn how to flip. There's enough people in town that can show you how to do it. They'll let you mentor with them or go in with them, and you can watch, so you're not taking much risk there, and learn how to do it. But they need to be involved, because how has that opened your horizon, or the clients that you now deal with, because they know you're in yourself, right? Yeah, and you can speak knowledgeably. Yeah. So bringing it back to an earlier question about our agents at Herron Real Estate, or any agent, not enough of them own real estate, and it's a shame, because they are the ones that have direct access to real estate through the customers that they work with, or even referrals or whatever. So all of the investors that are looking for deals, oftentimes they overlook real estate agents, but we're the ones that have the pulse on the market. And so you have like an unfair advantage that you can leverage. But I am a strong believer that you have to don't invest in what you don't know, right? And just because you buy and sell real estate doesn't mean you know enough to start investing. So what you said is getting connected with somebody who does is going to help accelerate that knowledge and the confidence. And so once you get to the point where you can talk the talk, you understand it, you've invested yourself, I highly recommend that you do that. Then you can help service other people who I think everybody, if you were to ask them, do you want to own real estate? The answer is yes.
Yes.
You want to be a real estate investor, even if, I don't care what industry they're from, I would say a higher majority are going to say yes. And so the curiosity.
Do they do it or not? That's another thing, because they don't know how to take that next step, which is generally most people in anything, right? They have oh, wow, well, this would be a great business, but you just don't know how to connect to the next step.
And so even if you're dealing with somebody who would say yes to that question, but their current problem is not investing. Their current problem is buying a house or selling theirs. But if you can connect with something that's like hidden deep in a lot of people, that they have an interest in real estate investing, that's a way to also build trust, right? Because that's what we want to do. We want people to know that we got their back, that we're educated, we're going to be professional. Trust me, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to give you advice that you may not always want to hear. Right, I'm not going to always give good news. In fact, I might give bad news more than good news at sometimes. But just having that trust and having that experience can help you build that trust as a professional. And then in the future, if you can continue to work with them and help them realize their vision, not everybody's built for owning real estate. But if some people are, and you can help them realize that and help them with that, it does go a long way in current business and referral business.
All right, let's jump over to Herron.
Okay.
You said you were there with David and Christine at the beginning.
Yeah.
You guys have, and this comes on because I remember it was a couple of years ago when you brought on the last couple as part of your ownership team, I guess you call it there. And I remember Kathleen was advertising that you were looking for that thing and some of the requirements that they wanted from that person that they would bring in. What it kind of give, I mean, what was, I think you actually said before the show, David's vision that he painted for you of what Herron Real Estate is, because it is a little different. And I look at you guys and the other company we were mentioning earlier that are big in recruiting. Matter of fact, they're like offering classes to try to get their agents more involved in investing. When you were talking about that a little bit, but tell us a little about what was David's vision that caught your eye and said, I need to be involved in this. And then how does that ownership team work and what's their responsibilities? Because it's a little different than the average brokerage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so this is what I couldn't wait for this question. So the vision, and he would explain it better than me, but let me I can only tell it through my lens. Right. And so if I take you back to me getting connected with David in real estate, we were sitting together, had a couple drinks, talking about what I wanted in real estate investing, and then David shared his vision for this real estate brokerage. And the vision was cloudy at first, probably crystal clear in his mind, but I had to take some time to get oriented with this vision. But really the gist of it is that, David worked at another brokerage, he and his wife, and they'd never talked to the broker. So that was like problem number one. They figured it out with a lot of anxiety and stress and leveraging people that they knew in the business.
I think and there's a lot of agents in this boat even today.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so they went through it and were successful. I don't have their actual numbers in front of me, but I think we can all agree that they.
Well, they're still in real estate today, so they must have had some success.
Absolutely.
They paid the bills.
Absolutely. And so that was important for them, is to make sure that we at Herron Real Estate operated completely differently, where the broker was available, right? There was support. And but we also understood that the market is changing. And I say we, and this was communicated from David to myself, or David and Christine, in fact, to myself, and I was, putting the pieces together, analyzing it and trying to understand it. And so they understand that agents work hard. It's a hard business, right? The traditional brokerage where you get leads from the broker is like a way of the past. Yeah, there's still brokerages that do that, but we believe at Herron Real Estate that we as a brokerage should teach agents how to run their own business, right? Brand themselves, run their own business, generate their own leads.
Teach them how to fish.
Right, exactly. And if we're going to be doing that, we know that's a lot of work. They just don't clock in or come into the office and we give them a lead and tell them to go run with it. And these agents that are putting in that work, they're running their own business. We wanted them to have the fruits of their labor, right? So that's why I hate the discount brokerage kind of label, but we're attractive when it comes to an independent agent's financing or a team or whatever, right? It's like, we're attractive because they keep most of what they make. But then that poses a problem, right? Because they just said that they wanted to be able to be available and provide support, and that comes in the way of training and many other things. But they also aren't going to take much money as a brokerage. And as a business person, you're like, okay, how does this work, right? Like,
you're going to take all my time and give me a little money.
Yeah. So how do we keep the office running and keep the business operational? And so this is kind of where we don't fit the mold, because when David asked for me to be a part of this, in fact, I wasn't even licensed at the time, and I was excited, a little nervous. I didn't know what I was signing up for, a little naive maybe, but bringing in equity partners or owners, what that does is it removes a paid position or a salary obligation, right? And you're able to provide support with a team that now we benefit if the brokerage benefits, and if the brokerage doesn't, we don't, right? It's a business owner position. And so that was a way to control
blood
costs.
in the game. You got to have some,
And their plan, just to kind of run you through it, I was the first one, but that doesn't make me the most important by any means. The team was picked in terms of really how well they fit with the brokerage vision and our culture. Okay, so like if you were to ask me what I'm most proud of, what the owners are most proud of, it's the culture. Like our growth, I would like to think is, of course, there's a finance piece with the money, but it's really culture driven. And each team member, each owner was picked with their talent in mind. Like the second owner is Amber Taylor and Keith Taylor, right? And like if you've met Amber, like if you,
I've invited her on. She hasn't accepted my invite.
I'll speak for her, okay? You would have to turn the volume down in here if she was in the seat, because she is like a ball of energy. Okay. So, like literally, if you look up energy in a Webster's dictionary, her face is right there. Right, her unique talent is different than mine.
Right.
And then Alex and Janelle Johnson were next. And honestly, like they were just agents in the beginning, but you would have thought that they ran the brokerage or owned the brokerage, because they were providing so much support. They were always there helping to set up, and like they really did act the way that we say that our culture is, right? And so it really made sense, and we went through the process and brought them on. You mentioned Kat as well. I mean, Kat, she loves her spreadsheets. She loves her processes. I mean, all of the women that we have are super powerful, strong, independent, great real estate agents. And so she was next, and a unanimous decision amongst everybody else that was already on board. And then Erica and Laurent, I think you mentioned, were our final two. And their passion for like making sure that the experience at real estate, or the experience at Herron Real Estate that we put out, the culture that we say we have, is in fact what our agents get. And so they're often reaching out to our agents regularly, like just checking in. Like, how's business? How are things going? What are you not getting here that you thought you would get? Tell us the good, the bad, the ugly. And we meet monthly to get that feedback and put plans in place to make sure that like who we say we are, we actually are. Because sometimes you can get lost in business and kind of forget that.
Yeah. Well, real estate can be that way. Yeah. You could be with some of these, there's some agents that thrive just because they just have a business mindset or whatever, and you could throw them in at pretty much any brokerage and they're going to go because they just go find it themselves.
Right.
There's others that I would say, just an example, they may come from that corporate America and have that 9-to-5 mindset, although I've had a couple very successful ones that came from corporate America and instilled that into there, and that's why they're really good. But where you're waiting for the assignment, type of thing, and you could feel like you're on your own island, and is this happening to other people and so forth? And I think as real estate agents and even loan officers, you need to have some level of water cooler talk, or in your sales meetings, this is happening to everyone. If you have a cash buyer right now, make sure you have a backup offer, because these are things that we discussed earlier. You need to share those little things, because you can be on your own little island in real estate. And if your broker's not reaching out, or the owner's not reaching out and just saying, hey, what's going on? Or you're not coming into the office regular to get a little bit of that water cooler talk, you think it's only happening to you.
Well, and I think it's like the 1099 anywhere you're at, where you're a business owner. Not everybody has their actual, an LLC or something like that, but they are running their own show. And for us, we offer things to try and help agents through that. And that this is a high turnover business, both in and out of the industry, and then between brokerages as well. I think Herron Real Estate's been fortunate with our retention, and many that have left have ended up coming back. But when I talk to agents, when we onboard agents and we ask them why they're considering leaving or how many other brokerages have they been with, what I try and help them understand, and everybody's tact with this is different. So I say what I believe is that oftentimes agents, they're looking for brokerages to solve their problem, but they have to take ownership of their problem and solve it themselves, and then see which one of these brokerages will help them, where it'll be harmonious, like help them with their solving their problem, right? But they have to understand that they have to kind of take the reins and do the work. So at Herron Real Estate, I talk to a bunch of new agents. We have a mentorship program that pairs experienced agents up with new agents to try and get through that learning curve, because we're going to try and do everything we can. There's so much to do in real estate. We fool ourselves into thinking we had productive days just because we were doing things all day. And you got to understand, like, what is actually going to bring in money, like what is the income producing activity. And even with new mentees in our program, I tell them, like, look, you're going to want to do everything. And in fact, my aunt was recently licensed, and she's no different. I told her she was going to do this, and she's no different. She's a master at cold calling, and that's what her skill set is. But then she calls me, and she goes, I want to fill up the rest of my day with things like, open houses and all of these other different things that she's then got to learn, take attention away from learning like this one thing that we know generates income. And it's like, we just need to be hyper-focused. Sometimes you need a mentor and the accountability to tell you, like, we know this works. Like, we know what works in real estate. You got to pick something and just stay with it. Stay persistent with it, and don't chase the shiny objects. Once you feel comfortable, like you've mastered this, or not even mastered it, but comfortable that you understand the process that can make it happen, then you can start to explore and expand. But all agents, some do just come and knock it out of the park.
No, I think you hit it very well there. Having only worked for Herron, obviously, this is the 189th episode. I've interviewed 170 some different top agents from all over, and someone said it very well here just recently in the last handful of episodes about why they move around. I think it was Caitlin Doherty with DJ and Lindsay. They move around because they're looking for something, but they haven't narrowed down what is it they need. Right. And every agent is different in what they need and how they do their business. So there's two different things there. How is that? So they oftentimes, as Caitlin says, don't try to change the brokerage. They have their way of doing things. Find the brokerage that actually has the mindset, the culture, they're doing business. And then obviously what they're doing is there are people there that can help you fill your weakness. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's an interesting perspective, but I agree. And like the person has to understand that the work has to come with them, from within, right? They have to be motivated to do this. And it isn't for everybody, but finding a brokerage that in alignment with that is going to be huge. Like there's some brokerages out there that only take full-time. There's some other limitations that make decisions. Like some brokerages only take full-time agents, right? Or only top producers. And that's kind of their identity, right? And so you got to figure out where you fit. And sometimes where you fit now isn't where you're going to fit in the future. And so constantly evaluating what services are going to be provided, but you still got to understand that that the big problem that needs to be solved is often, it's an internal problem, and then you're using the brokerage resources and tools to help you with that, to help you with that. But culture, I couldn't say it enough. Like if you go to one of our events or even our just lunch and learns or trainings, that is Herron Real Estate. It's a family feel. It's an energy. It's a thing that I can't put words on. And that's what we're most proud of, working to having that cultural reputation. We've grown, a lot. We've been very fortunate. Some of that had to do with the market in the beginning, and the market's changed, somewhat recently, and we've still grown. When inventory was changing rapidly, things weren't selling. Our agent count growth was still, not to throw numbers out, was still rapidly increasing. And I handle our brokerage projections, and it's not making sense to my rational mind. And so when you think about that, finance is a big thing, right? How much you take home, but having the culture and the support and that feeling is, some people put more value in that than others, I understand. Yep. But our owners, that's what we're most proud of. That's what we work and focus on. Well, the agent needs like anything, if you don't like what you're doing, you don't like the people you have to work with and so forth, it's a downer to get out of bed in the morning. Yeah. You try to find excuses not to show up, and that sort of thing. Do you feel the unique ownership equity, whatever how do you guys describe it? You call it partnership?
Equity partners.
Equity partners. Okay. Yeah. The fact, and there's there's 6 of you, 6 couples?
So, yeah. 6 couples. Couples at David and Christine, right? And then 5 others.
5, okay. Yeah. That different than other boutique brokerages, who the brokers is generally a lot of times the owner, so they're dual role, but no one else really has a true stake in it. Yeah, where you guys were obviously the group voted in the next person. All you had to go through and approve that. And what would that couple add to the overall mix? But now you're able to field a greater variety of agents with different needs. Yes. Because I think that some brokerages, that broker's probably really good at something and you go over there, but again, they're only one person and they're trying to do some of their business. They're trying to, especially if there's low splits and, as any individual, they like to go on vacation and sometimes in life they get tired and they're no longer adding value, where there's 6 of you constantly. So if one of you's on injured reserve, there's 5 other couples there that can provide the support and the energy.
Right. So I host our new agent orientations, and I tell all the new agents this when I go over like who is available to help you. People that are on staff that we pay, and then our owners. And I let them know when they see our ownership team picture, I let them know that every single one of these people on this slide, our sole purpose is your success, right? And we're business owners, and we're smart too, right? For us to succeed, our people have to succeed. And they're like their safety nets is what I call them. And you're right, because if you have one point of contact, one person, you're only getting one experience, right? In terms of what they like, what their expertise is.
And how many times these brokers don't even produce anymore.
Right.
So they're not even really attached to what's actually going on.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so, and at Herron Real Estate, you do. And everybody can reach it. It's an open door policy, wide open doors. I mean, David should have his phone like glued to his ear. The man he's out there and he's supporting our agents. He's a servant leader. He's really great. I'm glad that he and Christine are both kind of driving the show here and leading by example. But the whole team is the exact same. Yeah, it's a unique dynamic, and having a team it poses its own challenges. Let's not just scoot by that one. Because different personalities,
right?
And so we've had to learn as a new company what's important for business, what's important for our business relationships. How do we stay healthy as partners? How do we focus on continuing our internal growth to help grow the business as well? And it's been fun, and it's been a little bit rocky, but we're human,
right?
And we're still here. We're still loving everything.
Well, it's such you kind of tapped on that. I always remember I was telling somebody this the other day, because my wife was explaining the group dynamics, especially of women. They get to about 5 or 6, everything's okay. The 7th, you're starting to push. And then personalities start to clash.
So 7 is not a lucky number.
Well, 6 or 7, you're on the edge, right? And you, because all of a sudden, the person who thinks, there's always somebody who is number one, which is probably Christine, because Dave and Christine started, so she's seen as the queen, and then everybody else is there. But when all of a sudden you get too many of the princesses, right? There comes.
I didn't say that. You did.
I said that. I said that. You're all queens. I know you guys are listening, but the group, the fact that you have a group.
Yeah.
And then somebody comes up with an idea and they're passionate about it. They're like, oh my God, I lost sleep last night. We should do this.
Yeah.
How does this group handle that?
We're not perfect in that. And so whenever, to show you where we're at in our phases, we're kind of mastering this currently. Okay. If I'm for full transparency.
Is there ever really a final answer though?
Yeah, probably not. No. Yeah. So like if we can get 70% to 80%, like we're doing really good.
Right.
Okay. But we all have our own opinions, our own experiences largely drive like what we feel is right. But whenever we started, we were in growth mode, and we were all focused on growth, right? Because we needed to pay the bills and whatnot, and we had a vision. And then as a business grows, you have to start focusing on like these different business silos, right? And sometimes like one silo, if you were to look at just finance or sales and marketing or recruiting or operations or whatever it is, now, although we're still focused on one primary goal, we have smaller individual goals that we're focused on. And a lot of times when it comes to making decisions, once everybody's kind of diverged into smaller goals, that's when you start to have a lot of that conversation about, is this really right and is this not right? David and Christine, they listen, though they don't come in with a decision made. They come in with an open mind and in fact have been influenced. Like I talk with both of them in group settings and one-on-one, and all the owners do. And sometimes, like, we know whenever we are faced with a challenge, we're having a discussion about it, where they stand. Like, we can tell, it's kind of no secret. Body language says a lot. But I do think that at the end of the day, we're making the best decision. And sometimes it's not always what they came in with a predetermined decision, made on a certain topic. Yeah, so it's tough. It's tough. But honestly, like, the hard part about life is working with people. That is the most challenging thing that there is in life. And so there's no different in business. It's no different working with customers. And if you work with people who are open-minded, who genuinely care, and it really does take something deeply rooted like that to build a strong team. And we got it. We got a strong one. I'm proud of everybody that we work with. And we'll butt heads. And we're human. But we respect each other. And at the end of the day, we know that we got to take Herron Real Estate from where it is today, at least one step forward tomorrow, 2 steps forward the next day. We're going to have the steps back like everybody else does. And we just got to stay flexible with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, just in our conversation, that's why, that came up with the Yeah, you have 6 leaders, different personalities, and you have a wide net, and there's always someone there to back somebody up. And you bring on a new agent, there's always who are they? Just like a client, are they going to match with you or your wife? Well, a new agent coming in, who are they really going to sync with as far as in the leadership team, and feel that they are talking to someone who has a stake in what's going on in the culture and how to affect it. How many agents now?
So we're at around, we got some yesterday and today, and so we're around like 470, between 470 and 475.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize it was, I was going to say 100 something, maybe 200. Wow. 478. And then you got the 2 offices in Orange Park and the one you guys opened a couple of years ago on San Jose.
Yep.
Right there. You and Landmark Title, perfect, side by side. There's an agent listening, working with another brokerage right now. What kind of, because I think one of the biggest challenges, and I'm sure you've seen it in your business, all agents, is if they're producing, at some point they reach I call it the lid. I'm John Maxwell, the lid.
Okay.
Right? They reach a point where it's like there's only so much they can do themselves.
Uh-huh.
What is the support mechanisms that you guys have in-house at Herron, as far as transaction coordinators, helping them with all the different marketing or social media, whatever, what support people do you have, implanted there?
So when it comes to like hitting the lid or hitting the ceiling, everybody is going to hit that at a different pace and for different reasons. And we transact so we're really big at teaching agents how to leverage. And even if it's not something that we feel like knowledge is power, right? And so we do offer tools and resources to help them with how to leverage, whether it's connecting them with transaction coordinators or using software like CRMs or using any technology for that matter, and helping them build some structure around how to make that system work for them in a very simple way, right? Complex, confused minds really don't progress at anything, right? Or make decisions. But yeah, so what we pride ourselves on is basically taking somebody who wants to be a real estate agent, right? They want to work in real estate, and helping them build the foundation as an independent business, right? And so when is the smart time to leverage? How do you leverage? How do you make the decision on, can I afford this? A lot of times somebody will jump to spend money on something and do no research, right? And they just heard other people say that they make money, but they don't know the expense or what time or money is going to need to go into that.
I think there's one thing is time. You're learning how to use it properly.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of these tools can be really overwhelming, and they're geared for somebody who's already gone through and understands the foundation, and you kind of work your way up to how to use the more complex tools. But you certainly don't start there, and a lot of agents want to, and they really get kind of discouraged with that. Right. So we have a wide team when it comes to business. Like David, his background is in helping doctors grow their practice, right? And so he went to UNF and got a degree in business. And we're running a business, right? But when it comes to lead generation, you're probably going to leverage Christine. And we all do one-on-one trainings and group sessions. But we really take a look at the individual agent, because most agents come from something else. Right, I don't often meet an agent who became an agent in high school or right out of college. Yep. Most of the time, they're transitioning because there's something attractive about being an agent. The number one thing is control of their schedule, right? And then
so they think.
So they think. But then, so if you think about how we're going to be providing support and what our agents most often use, is they're going to be leveraging David's business expertise, and he is open door. You schedule one-on-ones with them, and they do them all week. All the owners do, for that matter. And you talk about Christine and marketing. Every business is a lead generation business first, and we're looking at these agents to say, what can you leverage in your past life or your current life if you're doing 2 jobs? Right, often agents are. How do we take that and make it work in real estate as well? What is your passions, your hobbies? What have you previously done? Because David and Christine have individually done a lot of creative things in terms of marketing. They've spent a lot of money and figured out what works and what doesn't, spent a lot of time. You can dig deep with those two, and then it's just an interesting conversation. You got a lot to learn from them. And our agents do that. And I'm very analytical, and so you're going to come to me and I'm going to help you analyze, David is as well, but I'm going to help you, let the data help you, right? Oftentimes a big thing that agents do is farming. They want to do farming. They hate the fact that there's a delay in gratification, and there's money up front that's spent. But too often agents will do farming. They just kind of throw money away. And I help them dig into the numbers to understand the potential a neighborhood actually has in terms of gross commission income. And so it's just being smart around all the facets of owning a business, even creating a business entity and understanding the taxes and things like that. We do want to help agents where they're currently at. Because a brand new agent, we are going to tell them stay away from all of the distractions and let's focus on one thing. An established agent or team leaders, we're going to give them much different advice.
You bring up something and I hope that everyone at Herron's listening, or if now or tomorrow or whatever. You said something. We like to bring it to where the agents are at.
Yes.
And I don't think of all the people I've spoken to, I don't know if can't remember anyone actually talking about, when we're talking about the brokerage and ownership adding value to the agents, because my next kind of question is retention.
Okay.
And this comes down to it. You're adding, because if you're not bringing it to them where they're at or understanding where everyone is at in the 470 agents that you have. Now imagine there's probably, we know that 50% didn't produce too much last year. So we know that statistic, and it's probably true over at Herron. Although I do remember seeing something you guys post that you guys had the most
producing agents. We're up there.
Most producing percentage of agents. Yep. Yes. So that's definitely something to brag of. And that says something about your leadership team. I mean, that's what's moving the needle. You're above average in that because you are bringing it to where they're at. And I think because of your diverse leadership team, you got 6 people looking at this versus one broker. Maybe they got somebody who they confide in. They already have their mindset on something. It's hard for them to bring it to them where they're at.
Right.
And if you're not at where they're at, they eventually say, I need to find somebody who sees me where I'm at and goes to another brokerage.
Right.
Because if there's any success in any brokerage, it's retaining those agents, because they're hopefully, as they're longer in their business, the better they do, right? So that was just I think that's something to say about Herron. That I think, and I don't know, I would attribute, say, how are they doing this? It's because you have this equity partnership, and everyone's looking at every agent, and how can I move every agent another sale, another deal? Can I get them 2 more deals this quarter, or maybe they're 5 more deals for the year, or whatever it is, and you're able to do that with a wider swath of equity partners in David's vision there.
Right.
And which then enforce retain.
Right. Yeah. Retaining is a huge thing because we talked about the turnover, and we are lucky and fortunate in the numbers that we retain. I mean, we're no different. We do lose agents from time to time, and we've been very fortunate that many of the agents that have left have come back. In fact, I'm not going to say any names, but we've had an agent leave and then come back.
What did they say? Like, they went over and tested the water over there. Grass wasn't greener. Did they kind of say? Yeah.
So I think, and this is a hard one because not everybody is going to be completely open and honest because they, we're humans and we're sensitive to what other people feel. But I do think a lot of it really comes back down to the culture more than anything. Okay, and the reason I say that is because you feel the support here, and I wish there was another way I could describe it that everybody isn't saying, and it's almost like you just gotta. If you know what, come to an event. Like, our events are open to everybody, and if you're curious, what is Garrett even talking about? This feel, you will feel it. I guarantee you will. But we've been fortunate that they've gone. Yeah, they tested the waters, and a lot of times, some brokerages feel like they're a little bit less organized, smaller, and then some feel more corporate. And then I think maybe we're just in a weird kind of sweet spot where we have enough structure and support that we conduct business professionally, but we still feel like family, kind of small. The number isn't small, 470 agents.
That's a lot,
certainly isn't small. Yeah. But you go into our office and, you're going to get hit with the smiling faces from our lovely, office admin. They're a great resource, a great team of ladies that we have. And that's it, right? You come in and you get a smiling face, right? And we just try to keep that consistent. And really, I keep saying it, man, but it is that. I think that the retention is primarily the culture, because you can go and you can save money out of other brokerages, right? Like, we're not the only person out there that you're going to save money by signing up with, right? And so why are so many coming to Herron Real Estate outside if you just put that piece aside? Your family does.
Right.
That's it.
Right. I'm going to kind of change, and then I'm going to go back. I want to go back to the Garrett group, and you and Erica, both of you are native to the area. What are you doing as real estate agents? What is your go-to marketing? What works for you? I mean, over the last, roughly 4 years now, you're out there regularly. What have you find is your sweet spot?
So I think that anybody that's a native somewhere, they have that unfair advantage because they grew up with people, right? And we're both, pretty social. And so
Now, where'd Erica from Orange Park, or she's an Orange Parkian too?
Yep.
Okay.
And so most of our business is going to come from friends, family, sphere, past people that we've met. Having an engineering background, I got, a large mass of people there that know me professionally. And that just knowing somebody that you can trust is a big deal. And so it's kind of an unfair advantage there as well. And I always talk about real estate. So our focus is with just between us is just keeping people in the know about what's going on in the community. And we do that through print or social media advertising or phone calls or text. And so we're just constantly touching our sphere. We use KV Core, that's the CRM that our brokerage offers. And so we can put out newsletters and we put out blogs. And this podcast, like this platform, I love it. And eventually we'd love to do something like that, maybe for the brokerage as well. But that's more brokerage oriented. But so doing that is huge. And I've dabbled with the other things like cold calling and driving for dollars, things I did for the investing side before being a real estate agent. But what feels the most natural to us is just leveraging the people that we know. And I tell every agent, any new agent, they're like, hey, what does a database look like? Well, it looks like that. Sorry, I got a cracked screen. Everybody's got a database in their phone. This is always right next to everybody.
And there are apps that'll pull that off for you and put it in an Excel spreadsheet for free.
Exactly. And so just figuring out how to follow up with people, and then and understanding that whenever we follow up with people, they're going to be more receptive to anytime you can let them know something. I say value, but it could just be sometimes a phone call saying, hey, it's Garrett. I haven't talked to you in a month or two or whatever it is, and I just want to know if there's anything I can help you with. And a lot of times, just that kind of question is they're like, wait, it's not just real estate. I can do much more than just real estate. So just figuring out ways to stay in touch and provide value. And my wife's really good at understanding what goes on around town. And we like to go out with our kids. We bring our kids everywhere. And, we're going to do activities that are family friendly. And a lot of times we attract that type of customer as well that's got young kids and similar interests. And just being ourselves, not trying to be anybody else.
Well, I had two very young ladies on the other day. They're already 24. They've had great first and second years where they're at. So we were talking about that. But I think people, you and I have kids, so we're involved in those activities, ball fields and all that kind of thing going on. And we forget that there are people pre-kids.
Yeah.
And there are people post-kids that are out there that are not, socializing at the bus stop, or, they're not, at the birthday parties every weekend, that kind of thing going on, that they need to be brought in touch too.
Yeah.
And sending these messages out to them, letting them know, because they're buying and selling real estate. Hopefully, the pre might be buying their first home. They might be downsizing or who knows, buying their kid a home or ready. Now the kids are out. Maybe they are looking to invest, telling them where they're at in their careers and so forth. And I think we forget that, we're in this kind of middle swath with raising kids. We got all this stuff going on. They don't necessarily have all those extra social activities going on.
Yeah. So from my perspective is I try and pick your ideal customer, right? Because we're not going to be the right person for everybody. And so for where I'm at today, sitting in this chair with a 5 and 6 year old and a wife and all of the things that we have going on, we have things as a family that we enjoy doing. We have in common activities and our ideal customer is going to largely be the people that are attracted to the same types of things that we are. Right, exactly. And the first-time home buyer, if you see the stuff that we put out, it's probably not going to be let's say somebody who's just got in, buying a house when they're in college, or maybe they haven't graduated or just graduated and they're trying to buy a house. Just naturally, the type of people that we are, I can absolutely service that person. I've been there, right? But our lives have events that take place, and then we put those events out there. We try and let people know who we are today. And so generally that's going to attract a type of person. But you're right. There's people out there that don't have kids and will never have kids, or people that have had many kids that have that need to downsize.
Well, you're sitting there dealing with another peer, and this has a family, and they have parents.
Yeah,
they have aunt and uncles who might live locally or so forth. That you get into those circles, and you've got to again, you don't know what information, and you don't know when they're going to be ready to buy real estate, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. And so you just gotta I talk about it all the time. My wife is a little bit different than me in that fact is that I just can't help it. I've been in love with real estate through the investing side, and a lot of times I'll segue into that.
Right.
But I talk about it all the time. But the special touches really come from my wife, and so I talk about it. I'm like kind of a little feel like I have the knowledge, and my wife has the personal touch, and it's like sometimes this simple thing like when somebody's birthday, right? It's like that is everybody likes to hear happy birthday. Everybody's favorite word on the planet is their first name,
right?
And it's things like leave it to the engineer to totally blow through all that stuff, and then she saves me,
Right.
Some of the other, I mean, really, when it comes to generating business, your own backyard is a real good place to start if you're a new agent.
Right.
And, my wife started sourdough bread, like I think everybody did. I don't know. Apparently, it's like this huge social media craze with sourdough bread. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Next time I see you, I'll have to bring some that she makes. But she makes so much.
That must be why my dad does it. He's back into bread making. He hasn't done that since I was 40 years. Yeah. Now he made bread we had obviously Easter. He made a loaf of bread. Yeah.
But I went with my sons, and she made a lot of sourdough bagels, and we went and handed them out to our neighbors. And so, like, I just think you should be smart though. Like, let's not do like these sporadic gifts. They're great, but if you're going to do it as a part of your business model, then there's got to be the consistency behind it. And so giving bagels once is great, but if you're you just got to be consistent with whatever it is, however you're putting your name and your service in front of these individuals, or the fact that you're able to help, you just got to be consistent. Do
agents, you mentioned it earlier about, we were talking about some sort of marketing and understanding it's long term. Really, unless you're buying hot leads where someone, they went on your site and they're looking at houses. Okay, that person may be ready to buy right now. They may be just curious in that house because I don't know, maybe they grew up there, grew up in the neighborhood, or their friend owned it. Who knows? Whatever reason. But that everything you do has to have a long term play in the consistency that you're talking about. It can't, the social media. People are, well, do you get business off social media? No, social media is a long term play, and I don't think you ever can measure whether you do or not. It's a tool to stay top of mind. Yeah. I know they put all their stuff on Instagram, the kids, all that, but all it's on Instagram so that all their friends can see what they're doing. And, oh, hey, by the way, I'm selling houses too.
Right.
And it's a long term.
Yeah, the long term play, and a lot of times, when real estate lead can be defined in many ways, right? And sometimes they're hot, sometimes they're cold. But you're right, it's the long term play, and really, like, we should all be trying to figure out what the problem is. And it's funny because you go into a store and you walk into a store, you're going to go buy a pair of tennis shoes. Let's say you go into Dick's Sporting Goods or wherever, you're going to buy some sneakers. And the person at the front says, hey, Tracy, can I help? They don't know your name or whatever. Hey, can I help you find something? And you say, no.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm good. Yeah,
right? And so we're so... People are being sold an ungodly amount of times every single day. And we are really good at saying no, putting up an objection and basically just trying to dodge the salesperson. But we all you're in a store. Like, you didn't just happen to walk into wake up and say, oh, I'm in a store. No, you're there for a purpose. If a lead is calling you or somebody's reaching out to you, it's for a reason. And just don't expect, especially if you don't know them, that you're going to get to the cause, understand their problem, but that should be what we're doing. And you can't just hammer it. People are people. You can't just say, what is your problem? And then again, what is your problem? What is your problem?
Right.
When they say provide value, you're trying to build the rapport, build the trust, somebody that they know, like, and trust, right? But at the end of the day, we got to figure out what the problem is so that we can help solve the problem. And hopefully it's real estate related, right? That's what we're doing. But sometimes you'll find out that it isn't, right? And so maybe their problem, they think they want to sell their house, for instance, but maybe there's a trust problem or a divorce or something else that actually needs to be solved, and they don't even need to sell their house. Right. Sometimes that happens, but you don't know until that's your focus, is to dig deep.
Well, since we're on the value subject, you guys had a large meeting, all Herron meeting at Landmark the other day using their facility, and the NAR lawsuit was part of it. I've had a couple of attorneys from Landmark on the show several episodes ago talking about this proposed settlement, but it's in the air, and we are using the term value. Patty Ketchum, Florida Commission, well-known Florida realtor instructor, we're loosely using the term value out there. What is Herron? What were you guys, the gist of the conversation that you guys were having at Landmark in bringing because I think obviously there's a lot of clickbaiters out there on social media. I know there's one guy out there right now saying, hey, don't pay for real estate, just call me and I'll, pay me a few $100s and I'll tell you how to do it yourself. Yeah. This guy's on TikTok. I wanted to say something, but I'm like, no, there's already 10,000 already comments. Yeah. I don't need all the, type of thing. But what is the message that the leadership team of Herron is getting across to their
so I wasn't there at this. Unfortunately, I was away at being a best man at my best friend's wedding. Okay. But I think the thing is you mentioned seeing on social media, there is a lot of like chaos, uncertainty, anxiety, and it can be overwhelming when something changes in the industry. And sometimes it's a shame because some of what's being communicated isn't really new news, right? That's new news, even something, but because what I'll see out there is the 6% commission is no longer a thing, and they're posting all of these things that weren't really real to begin with, and so I do think that it's proposed, right? We're trying to understand it, but not get too far ahead of ourselves, and that's why we leverage the folks at Landmark, because they're attorneys, and really when it comes down to like understanding this, we need to bring in some people that are more experts than we are.
Right.
But just when it comes to like a listing agent and a buyer's agent, and they bring different value to the customers that they're working with, and you got to understand a way to communicate the value. Because oftentimes the real estate agents feel or get told that like we're not worth, your job's too easy. What are you actually doing? And gosh, if I could just have
because a lot of us love, a lot of agents love what they do and it makes it look easy.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
it's not easy, but they just make it easy because they love doing it.
I wish all of the agents, anytime they hit a speed bump in a transaction, like if we could make, the month of April, you have to air out your dirty laundry or show the problems with what you're doing. And then I think that would help people realize that, like, yes, it's fun, it's exciting, but it's hard. It's a lot of work. And working with a particular customer, you're providing value for that customer while you're working with them. But there's a lot of energy just to get in front of these people, and so I don't think people even understand the overhead costs as it relates to running a business or being a real estate agent. And so really what we're trying to communicate is that, like, let's not all kind of freak out about what's going on. Let's respect the changes that are proposed and understand, like, the real implications, and then figure out how, as a real estate agent, do you still communicate and provide value and still get paid and can make a living and be extremely successful. Because I think some agents are fearing that the world's ending, and it's certainly not the case, right? We just
I think they're choosing that. Because there's some that have been thinking about getting out for a long time, and they're just going to use this as an excuse.
Right, exactly. You're right. And honestly, if that's the case, then maybe they weren't going to provide the best service anyway. I don't really know. We can't predict like that. Is the agent count going to be impacted? Is it yes? Is it no? How much? Right? It's like a lot of speculation on this, but we can certainly project and see some things that are going to happen as it relates to the number of agents actively selling real estate.
Would you agree? It's just important to know which I think it's actually, how many of the non-real estate industry people are actually paying attention to this going on. My question obviously was to one of the attorneys this is not some legislation. This is a settlement.
Right.
And they're going to try to tell us that that's the law.
Yeah.
That the terms they can't mix.
Yeah.
And I think so legislation needs to come involved if that's what needs to be to set the tone. But for an agent right now is how to respond should someone say, well, I heard this was negotiable. Yes, it is negotiable. Here's what we're providing. It's probably that conversation is going to happen in the listing appointment more than the buyer's consultation, but and explain the value, and then, hey, this is what's going on. This is your competition right now. We need to offer 2.5%, 3% to the buyer's agent, type of thing, because what they're doing. Someone did this great. There's been some great reels by agents role playing back and forth and showing, this is what it's going to cost you. Yeah, if they took $10,000 off the $400,000 purchase price because they didn't pay the buyer's agent, but how would what's that going to actually cost you bringing to the table? It was a great reel. I might have reposted it on my page, but just knowing that. Besides the NAR lawsuit, our market has obviously changed in the last 18 to 24 months. Rates are up. I see every morning. I tell people on listen to Bloomberg. They're talking out of both sides of their mouth on rate drops. This morning, they're still expecting. I still expect to see a rate drop by the end of second quarter. 3 this year. But then someone else says, well, if they drop the rates, it means they think the economy's not doing well. But with unemployment low and all, they're saying the economy's strong. So why would they drop the rate? So there's all this contradiction going on,
yes.
And I don't think we can wait around for that. I think people have been waiting around for that,
yeah.
And we got all these buyers now sitting on the sidelines.
Timing the market, as you know, is impossible to do.
Yeah.
Both in real estate's generally a slower moving market than the equities market or bond market, for instance. But timing it is not something that that anybody should be trying to focus their efforts on, because you're going to generally speaking lose out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that like from a macro economy standpoint, like there's a lot of indicators that are healthy indicators, and then it's like when you look at data, like you think about, I'm big into fantasy football, so I'm just going to use this analogy. I'm sorry for those that aren't, but you can take a player's statistics and make them look like a superstar or make them look like a dud. Right. Yeah. And so that's what people do with the data. And the layperson that's trying to consume this and make sense out of it has a real tough time. So getting a little bit educated on it is important, but
Mm-hmm.
that takes time too. I do think that waiting on the sideline, like I said in the beginning, like finding a way to buy a house, it is what I think should be the goal, right? For like owning real estate, I understand everybody's unique situation is different, but owning real estate is a big wealth generator if you approach it intelligently.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's tough. Like, so what is the market doing? When rates dropped towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, they kind of ticked down a little bit and things boomed, and then like the messages come out and they're mixed, and they're closely monitoring inflation, of course,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're basically saying inflation numbers are not where we want them to be, and that's one of the things that's going to affect the rates. And understanding what affects the rates, you're more qualified than I am, but mortgage-backed securities, the 10-year treasury, like there's so much that goes into like the interest rate that the consumer sees. It's a challenging thing to try and time and understand.
Well, you and I have seen, well, I'm a little older than you, but for most of my career, I was there pre-2008. It was November 2008 when the rates started to drop, because the quantitative, our own trade, were buying mortgage-backed securities, and we saw that for 15 years.
Yes.
And many people have grown up and saw these 3% interest rates, and they think that that's normal, and of course we try to tell them it's not.
Yeah.
But on the other side, we have the challenge of supply chain, because our government has gotten involved with too many regulations. The cost of bringing the goods to the table and build that house has gone up. So now all of a sudden you got high rates and high cost.
Yeah.
Now you got affordability is out the window, from that standpoint. So the challenges and all the different things that are involved in that, it's not just the interest rate.
Yeah, it is. It's so much more.
What are you paying for a gallon of milk? What are you paying? Golly, chicken. Can you imagine? I mean, bars used to have nice 50-cent wings. I mean, you can't. You're paying $1.50, $2 for a wing.
For sure. And it's across the board, and it hurts. You know? I think I filled up my gas tank yesterday or the day before, and it was $4.30-something for premium gas.
Mm-hmm.
And it hurts all across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to see when it comes to that pain, like you're going to see the indicators in terms of consumer debt and things like that, like that start to inch up and creep up. And we talk about the economy as a whole, is this soft landing, or is it going to crash? Like what's going to happen? And gosh, I wish we knew. But
you just actually hit on the consumer debt part, because if we do see if the rates go to 5.875 on a 30-year fix, we are going to have a refi boom because of the amount of consumer debt. And like we said, 55% of people are paying cash. There's so much equity in a lot of these homes right now. Nationally, actually, there's a tremendous amount of equity. They're going to have to tap into that to pay off those credit cards, as they were doing in 2005 and 6. And I was doing some crazy loans, cash out the 95% of the value of the home and paying off $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in credit cards.
Oh, people were paying off credit cards. They were buying toys. They were taking that money, investing in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were doing a lot of things, And but you're right. Yeah, if we hit a refi market where people can lower their payment and capture some equity and do something with that, the consumer debt is high, and that's like a sign that things are beginning to break, right?
Mm-hmm.
For everybody. And I don't care if you're making $50,000 a year or 500 or $1 million or whatever it is. Like the pain is felt across the board whenever nobody learns how to manage finances in school, right? Right. And so we all learn the hard way, unless you're fortunate to have a mentor or a parent that does. And that learning the hard way is credit cards often, it's a big deal. And those rates.
They get us in college early.
They do.
Garrett, anything you want to add to our conversation today?
No,
we talked about?
I've had a blast. I think that I appreciate, the opportunity. Like I said, I love real estate, but Herron Real Estate is in my opinion, that's my favorite thing.
Well, I'm extending the invitation out to any one of your ownership group. Yeah. Now, I won't have you all in a row, maybe one a month or something like that, to come out, because I'm sure everyone has a little different angle, but then everyone also has a little different story. And that's actually, if Christine remembers, one time she said why she wasn't coming on wasn't because she was shy. It was another reason. We'll talk about that off camera. But I said, it's not, I don't care. I want your story. Yeah. People need to hear your story, because hopefully some agents that were listening are now interested in Herron, motivated, maybe some ideas that you were talking about investing might call you and Erica and say, hey, we'd like to have coffee with you and pick your brain on that, because we'd like to start investing or flipping or whatever it might be, and feel they can have that conversation with you now that they know you a little bit.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the outlet. I love what you're doing. Like I said, I watched your shows before, and it is interesting to see everybody's perspective, and that's the beauty of it. Like we're all people figuring this thing out ourselves, and what works for me may not work for them, but the rest of the owners, I'll share that with them, and we'll see if we can get somebody else on here to share their story.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Cam.
Thank you.